Okay, guys. We might still be missing a person, but I can't do anything about that. We are recording. Let's get back to where we were. So the task for today is pretty easy, given that we got a good amount done yesterday. I pretty much want to finish off the terrain system and all the issues that are in my mind kind of related around that. There's a number of issues. Some of them are just more or less minor window dressing. They don't really involve much effort if you're going to take the art resources from someone else, but they do add a lot to the simulation. And then in the same vein, I'm hoping on Monday, maybe also trailing into Tuesday, we'll be able to do some audio, which is also a very underappreciated resource by some people, because especially for DoD models and sims, you might think, well, seriously, like, why do we actually need the audio? But for anything where it pays to be at all immersive, which means anything training oriented, audio is usually pretty cheap and pretty easy to add in. And in my view, it adds a whole lot for immersion. And it's going to be a little tricky this year to have you demonstrate audio back to me over Zoom. But I think it is doable. Well, you just have to be careful that when you share your screen, there is a tick box in the lower left to include your computer's audio. So as long as we, as long as we share screens properly, everything should be good. But I don't plan to start audio today. I think we've done more than enough for this week. You already can imagine then what I'm going to be asking you to do. I'm going to be asking you to build a terrain with like all these different elements that we're going over. That's what you're going to hear on Tuesday is going to be the assignment for next week. So there's plenty to dig into. And if we succeed with audio on Monday, then there'll be an audio component to that as well. Okay, so screen sharing time. Okay, so let me maybe, I'm gonna bring up my cheater notes. I think maybe they need some more enhancement. I think most of what I want to cover is in there related to terrain, but not everything. Again, like I say, it's this is kind of a basket of things related to terrain that I would like to have in. Let's see, fog and skybox, yes. Right, the only thing I'm missing here is actually wind, because wind is a nice thing to add in. It's really a physics topic, but again, it's really almost a nothing topic for Unity if you're doing the vanilla stuff, because you just got to monkey the right button down and you're good to go. Okay, so right, so let me go back to my app. This is not the prettiest island I've ever made, but it's got the elements of what I wanted to show. We already have terrain painting done. You kind of hopefully you get the idea about this this horrible checkerboarding effect that you see here. This is something that pretty much nobody likes, and we're midway through our agenda. We're midway through our anti-checkerboarding agenda. Let me see. Okay. So again, so it starts with just painting alternative terrains in to try to clear things up. Like you could maybe, if you remember, I did paint some sand in here. Maybe I didn't paint enough, but I think that helps somewhat. That's what the easiest, well, the most direct tool to use, because you're going to be texturing your terrain anyway. And then after that comes just putting objects down, because objects also obscure the ground. So these trees are the beginning of that. Okay, so what do we have left? So if we look at our terrain in the inspector, go into the gear, actually not the gear, it's got its own button here. Paint details. So here we painted the trees on using this. Here we painted texture. This button with the brush, right, that is raise and lower terrain and painting textures. The trees, placing trees, okay? And paint details is what can be used to place grass. And I'm pretty sure this might be abusable to place other kinds of objects as well, but I've never used it for that. I'm going to just kind of place grass because that's what's in the standard assets to be used. So again, you want to be looking in the environment part of the standard assets. And if you look down into terrain assets, you can see, let's see, surface textures we've already gone to, the billboard textures, okay? So these two grass fronds. So billboards, so they're basically, it's basically gonna be like a plane, a two-sided plane that's gonna be plastered with this, basically a picture of grass. It's mostly gonna be a transparent texture. Actually, let me bring it up here. Yeah. Oh, is it coming? Maybe it's coming. Went into GIMP for some reason. Okay. All right, so here you can see one of those images. That actually doesn't look like it has transparency in it. Interesting. Okay, well, let's take a look. I thought it did have transparency. I'm rather surprised. Maybe, maybe it's an image format where it's got like a cutout image that it's got a separate layer that kind of just shows what part's supposed to be cut out. Because like all this background that's kind of showing up as green here, like up here in the upper left, on the upper right, I would expect that to all be transparent. And I think it will be when we bring it into the to our application. Let's see. Okay, so let's do it. Let's go in here and this is not what I wanted. I'm gonna go back to the terrain. Okay, right. So we've already clicked on add paint details. Now we've got to edit our details. Okay, so we'll add oh, see, it's got two different things. It's got grass texture and detail mesh. So I think detail mesh would be like your little rocks and so forth, right? Those could go in here and they could be painted on the same way. Okay, so here we go. You see when I ask for a new detail object, there's room to put in a detail texture here, so I can go in here, and I think they have grass as part of the name, so I'm going to search for grass. Okay, so I've got two of them, grass frond 1 and grass frond 2, so we'll take one, we'll add that in. That's that guy, and let's add in the other guy as well, because I really would like some variety. Okay, so there we go. And you can see actually, then now you can see they're coming up transparent, right? So by some wizardry, that's been done, and you see they're both grass, but you can imagine this is two different species of grass that grows on this island. Okay, and then placing it, it's the same sort of thing that we've done before. So I'm gonna actually, let's say grass, maybe likes the area on this side of the hill around the palm tree. Let's go in here. I've got a brush selected. What are the parameters? Okay, the target strength is up super, super high. I want that super, super low. Okay, just because I tend to, otherwise, don't kill your level with too much. Now you can have quite a lot of this. Actually, you see it's coming in way fast. So I'm gonna, instead of like painting it, I'm just gonna click, and I'm still getting more than I would like to have. But I'll live with it. Click, click, click. Right, that's the one grass, and I can switch over and put in the other species, kind of in and around, make it look more interesting. Okay, so there you go. And I might want to come over here and put some grass underneath these trees as well. Why not? Probably should have started with that. Actually, I'm going to put it down very sparsely with a big brush. Let me pick this one, and let's make the brush real big. Oh, wow. Let me just try one click. There you go. Let there be grass. Okay, and we'll let the grass extend out a little bit on the side here. Okay. Maybe we can put some down into the water. Maybe it's that sort of grass. Doesn't mind a little bit of salt water. Okay. All right, let's see what we've got. Let's jump in. All right, so here we go. You can see the grass kind of swaying there. So I'm kind of surprised that it's animating by default. By the time we get done, the wind is actually going to have the trees swaying in the wind as well, so it'll look a lot more realistic. Right now, it looks a bit goofy because the grass is swaying and the trees are perfectly still, but yay, just have to live with it for now. Grass that goes down into the water. There we go. Yeah, I like it. All right. Okay. Right. So again, not very pretty, but this is mostly a tech demo. Okay, so that's most of the terrain proper stuff, except right there are. Let's do our wind. How do you do that? Okay, it's really, really simple. It's just a kind of game object, believe it or not. So you go into game object. Many of you probably already noticed this. 3D object wind zone at the bottom. So you click that in, and the wind zone is where. So you can kind of see what it looks like here. It's got a direction to it, and it's got a strength, and it's got some turbulence, and it's got some pulse, so it's not always blowing the exact same speed. Okay, and if we then just kind of jump into the game again, just with that down and in the default settings, you see that our palm trees are now swaying around. Okay, so it looks like a pretty steady offshore or onshore. Well, it doesn't matter. We're an island. All winds are onshore and offshore for us. Looks like a pretty steady wind there. I wonder if we can lower the pulse frequency just to get a sense of what that actually does. I'm going to let the thing run here and come over here. And let's just mess with this. So again, when you do this, keep in mind that your changes are not going to stick. If you like it, you're going to have to get out of the game and go and do it again. Let's lower it by a factor of 10. Still pretty steady. I want to see how low can I go with the pulse frequency. There we go. Let's get the magnitude. Let's try actually the magnitude up. I don't see a lot of change there. Let's see what we can do with turbulence. I think maybe this is making it a little more irregular. I think I might like it. What about if the main wind is hugely greater? I think trees can only bend so far, so we may already be at the top of our range. So you can see it's not like super flexible, but they do give you some. They do give you some options. And again, if you go to the wind zone object, okay, I got to get out of the. All my parameters I've just reset, right? Because I stopped. Okay, now I can come over here and I can go and do a rotate, and I can have the wind blow, I don't know, 90 degrees off. Let's see how different that looks. Yep, it's definitely different. Okay, so, right, so it looks pretty good. Now, it's not perfect. There's a few things we can do really easily to make it better. I want to get a skybox in there for one thing, something better than a clear blue sky. Nothing wrong with a clear blue sky, but we can make it more interesting that way. And then I want to show you where the fog controls are. Fog is not necessarily something that I need for my island, but why not? I mean, so the fog actually helps a lot in establishing an illusion of of depth and of distance. So you definitely want to at least consider it when you're building your levels. Okay. So let me just go in. Okay, so Skybox. Okay, so for Skybox, so there are free Skyboxes on the asset store. I also put one in Sakai. Let me show you where it is. The reason I did this is just because the downloads were horrendous from the asset store. I mean, Skyboxes tend to come in sets. You download a set and it is just a vast object, and I just thought it was it's going to take too long. So if you look into resources, you will see a sample skybox Unity package. Again, this just came from the asset store. It's not mine. It's not usually, don't redistribute it. It's just one of the free ones that was out there. And I basically just cut it out from a bigger package. And it's already, you'll see, it's only 20 megabytes in size, so it's much more reasonable to download. But it must be compressed, and when it goes into Unity, it's a bit of a chore even with the one skybox. Okay, so let's bring that in and see if we can make use of it. Let's go to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and let me find where I've put it on my computer. Maybe it's up here. All right, sample skybox. Okay, this one's called Day in the Clouds. You see it's got a material, and it's also got an HDR file. That's high dynamic range. Not sure why that's two separate files. That's just how Unity is doing it. And you can see it does not, despite the fact that it looks like a small object, tens of megabytes, it still takes it a while to process and bring it in. And you can see it is what's known as a cube map. So if you look at this, now you'll see it really gives a good illusion of sky, but it literally is a cube. At least I assume it is, so since they say cube map. These days, a lot of people don't use cubes. So I wonder if it's actually a cube. Maybe they're just using the terminology. A lot of people do use some kind of a cylinder or even a sphere to paste the skybox on, but it's basically a shape. It's like a dome going over a dome or a cube up above my island. That's what it'll be with pictures pasted on it. They're just really good pictures. All right, but as you can see here, they're not there yet. So how do you get them in? I think you want to go to Window, and then Rendering, and then Lighting Settings. Okay, and this is where I think we've been here before, where I think there may be an ambient setting someplace here. I think this is where we went for ambient setting. Maybe not. Not seeing it at the moment. Okay, but you definitely see Skybox here, right? So let's bring in the Skybox. It's set up for a skybox. Let's see what the options are. You can also just pick a simple gradient or a color. Skyboxes are much nicer. And then, boom, 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 boom. Where is the actual file? Skybox material. See this over here? Okay, directional light for the sun, skybox material. We'll go here, and remember it had clouds in the name. Day in the clouds. There it is. Boom. You see it's already in there. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Okay, it's a little confusing to see it in the scene view. Let's actually drop in the game. I think it'll look a lot better. All right. Be at night reflects in the water. All easy peasy. Wow. Okay. Good. So what do you think? It's getting better, right? All right. And then the next thing could be fog. So let's try putting it in. Wind and fog really don't go together so well, but maybe the wind just came up. It's blowing away the fog. So let's go back where we were, back in lighting settings. And somewhere in here, I think we ought to be able to find the fog settings. Oh, here we go. See this checkbox here for fog? It's currently off. We'll just check here to turn it on. And once it's turned on, now you can do a bunch of things, right? You can set the color of the fog. So it helps a lot if it matches the color at the horizon. This is what I've found. So this is just a rule of thumb. It's kind of raining there, doesn't it? From those clouds. All right. Let me get a good view of the horizon. Okay, so the horizon's like this color. Let's just see. It looks like it has an eyedropper here. Will it really let us? I'm not going to be that lucky, am I? Looks like an eyedropper. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so now I can have fog that actually matches the horizon color. I think that'll be a good thing. You can pick different models for how the density of the fog falls off over distance, and you can have more or less fog here. And then there's some, look, you can do halo and flare on lights. And when the light's coming through the fog, that's more than I've ever done. I think I'm going to quit while I'm ahead here. Let's go in and see if we can see the fog. Now, you can tell, I think I can see, well, I think I have very little control over my motion here. I'm going to go to the top of the mountain here so we can just kind of look around. And the problem is, this is the problem with having a small level. Oh, you see it, right? Okay, not much fog, but a little bit. Okay. Yeah, wherever it's appropriate, I like to use it. I think it is helpful for the feeling of depth. I'm not sure I like how the horizon looks there with this. It looks like we're really above the clouds. I mean, this might work better if we had like mountains in the distance to cover up those low-lying clouds. I really don't care for those, but anyway, the point is just the technology. So if you don't like this bitmap, get a better bitmap, and problem solved. Okay, so I think that's mostly what I wanted to go over for today, but let me just check. All right. So since we do have a little bit of time, I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to call it a day early for sure. But since we didn't look at any water other than this one, let's maybe try bringing in a patch of the other water just so you can get a sense of it. Let's go right. So, well, there's two other kinds of water here. Let's see. So you get up above my terrain. Let's see if we can have a patch of each of them and see what they look like. So if we look at water 4 is the one. The other one. Okay, water 4 advanced. Okay, let's try that. Oh, here we go. All right. All right, so here you go. You got a lot more swell to it. No white caps. That's going to require something something special. But definitely might be good for some people. Going to take more. It's making my computer chug. You can probably see it's animating a little bit and then it's freezing. Yes, that is what's happening. Much more computation intensive, but maybe worth it if you've got the cycles for it. And then on the other extreme would be this basic water here. So grab this guy. Okay, and let's see. Where we get back in again. I didn't like what happened when I brought it in. Let's scale it up. Okay, so you can see, well, sometimes you can see. Okay, so you can see this is a much more opaque kind of a water, right? They're not bothering to try to fake transparency because transparency, just as a general rule, it makes rendering more complicated, right? You have opaque objects and you can just ignore what's behind them. And with transparency, you can't at all do that. So you can kind of understand that if you were trying to make an application that was going to run on on phones or something like that, you might like some simpler water like this. And for all I know, there might be depending on what you're trying to do, there might be cases in which this actually just looks better than the other water for what you're trying to achieve. So there you go. Those are your options. Let me kill all this. Okay. And wow, we're really above the clouds here. You can now that you're this high up, you can kind of see. Yeah, maybe not the best skybox for what I want to do. Maybe it's better for like a jet flying game or something where you're supposed to be flying pretty high. Okay, so those are the elements that I would like you to focus on for the terrain. Do remember, I haven't brought it up. Okay, so again, it's good to have a little bit of extra time once in a while. Let me just, I don't think I've shown you the manual ever. I just want to remind you that it's there, right? Unity has a manual. It is uneven in quality. Sometimes I find it's telling me way too much for my level and for what I'm trying to do. Other times it's telling me way too little. You just, your mileage may vary, but it's a great resource, right? And it's all the topics, this whole curriculum that I've been showing in this class for the last few years is basically originated from material that's in this manual. I'd like to show you maybe one thing real quick, which I think is kind of cool and amazing. I did mention this, but it's not the diagram. Wanted to show the here, the order of execution. I think that's it. It's kind of so this is kind of an amazing diagram. So this shows, remember this, you remember your friend, the start method, right? Start, here it is right here, right? And your normal update method right here, that's where it gets invoked. And this just shows the whole cycle in Unity from initialization, so stuff that's going to happen just one time, stuff that maybe only happens under certain circumstances, start, again, still just one time. Here you see the arrows coming back around from the end of the frame. And all of these names in here are callback methods, like start, like update, like fix, here's fixed update right here, right? All good for various purposes. And this just kind of shows you what the deal is when each one of them gets called. I just think it's kind of interesting how very many of them there are. And there have been times when I've had to come here and mine it because I've been looking to make an event happen at just a certain point in the frame cycle. And this has been super helpful. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I wanted to really go over, but are there any questions?
A quick question on the project. Do you want the week-by-week labs? Do you want us to build on top of the previous ones, or if it's just demoing certain skill sets?
Yeah, it's just demoing. It's just demoing. Yeah, any building is totally on you. I mean, I know students, particularly if your time budget for this class is constrained, then you maybe want to lean toward recycling as much as possible. But that's totally on you guys. And the point of fact is, well, I know you guys are busy, and I know when you're busy, it really hurts to have to like redo work. It's great learning. It's great learning. And this stuff, and I'll say the same thing about this stuff that I say about programming, and I think it's at least as true for this stuff. It's just that when you go and do it again, like if you wrecked your terrain, or if you made your terrain too small, and now you realize since there's no easy way to resize it, let's say, you're gonna have to start with a new terrain and build it again. You will build it so much faster the second time, and you'll learn more. You'll understand better what's going on. So, probably from learning, just making more minimal demos each week and then throwing them all away and building your project is probably the way to maximize that. But again, you might not have that luxury. So, so it's your choice.
Okay, thanks.
I was just talking to, I was exchanging email with Michael today, actually, and we're thinking about, it's going to be still a few weeks, but the day will come toward the end of the lectures that I'm giving, where we'll ask you to put in a brief proposal for your project, and it's already we're already thinking about that. I think there should be a decent amount of time for doing a project, like a minimum of a couple of weeks, in which even if you decide to throw away all your stuff in a couple of weeks, if you've done okay in the course, you should be able to build a decent application. And then, yeah, if you could start it a little bit earlier and reuse some of the stuff you've done, you might be able to get to a higher point. That could be true. Okay, any other questions? Okay, fantastic. Well, enjoy working with this tool set. I think it's really decently well thought out and quite powerful and pretty gratifying. And audio, we'll add audio to the mix early next week, and then we'll push on. I'm thinking the week after that, we'll probably start in with the navigation system and related things. Okay? Have a good weekend, guys.